And you can't possibly think that you want to control it all the time. If you want to control something and you want to love and nurture it, just get a dog.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Desi Outsiders podcast. I'm Meenal.
And I'm Ankita.
And in this episode, we discuss the biggest business investment we face in India. We also like to call it marriage. But before we get into that this week, Ankita, I just want to tell our listeners that this week has been so exciting. It's been so stressful. We've lost sleep. Ankita forgot to even scrub her kitchen sink. And it's all because of Brangelina's breakup.
Come on, Meenal. Seriously. We just messed up one introduction and you had to bring this up. Dear listeners, Meenal has just lost her introduction privileges. She doesn't get to do this anymore.
I'd really just like to thank all of you for tuning into our pilot episode, and not just tuning in, but also leaving your thoughts and comments. Your kindness and support has only inspired Ankita and I to bring you many more entertaining episodes, but this time I assure we'll have better audio quality and maybe even a few less annoying giggles from my side.
I think my favorite one was someone called you Siri with a sense of humor.
I know, Ankita. Your audience from 22 Nelson Street and all your readers at Ankita.inc have welcomed me with such open arms, and they've taken you on board into their hearts, and now they've welcomed me as well. And it's very touching to be part of such a wonderful community.
Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? You know what feels better?
What feels better?
My mom, she listened to it and she said, Meenal sounds so fun, like this school girl, this college girl. She sounds fun and vibrant, and you sound like her teacher. She actually said that to me. And one of Shane's cousins, who's never met me, she's in the US and she's never met me before. But we talk regularly. You know, we text each other. We talk on Facebook. And when she listened to this for the first time, she said she got a panic attack because she always imagined me to have like this squeaky kid-like voice.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting here sounding like a grandma.
But did she think that because of your body frame?
I think so.
Probably.
And plus, the rants on 22 Nelson Street are not very mature, you know. So, yeah.
Well, so we just want to thank everybody, and we just hope that you continue listening to us. So we'd like to go into our episode now and talk about marriage, more specifically love marriage. And for those of you who may not be Desis or may not even be part of our Indian culture, I think this will be very interesting to listen to because it will give you a very good insight into how marriage is perceived in India and how most families go about it. So in our previous episode, Ankita did mention, she gave us a quick snippet into one of her stories about when she mentioned the term love marriage when she first came into the UK. Ankita, I think you should just remind our listeners about that story because I think it would be the perfect place to begin this podcast.
So when I first moved to the UK, I met up with one of my husband's friends and I told him, I was excited. I told him very proudly that we had a love marriage, and he clarified that over here, we just call it marriage. And that was like this big revelation. It was a big moment in my life when I began to question everything I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I began to question all of my beliefs. And ever since, whenever I've had emails from the boys and girls who read my blog, they sometimes send me emails saying, you're so lucky you had a love marriage. I just cannot help but cringe a little bit inside because I feel that the more I've been thinking about it, the more I feel that it's about time we stop using these labels.
I think, Ankita, that the reason why people mention love marriage so much in India is because arranged marriage is the norm. So this is why we've brought about another term for our new generation. But you're right, yeah. Ankita, no tags are needed these days.
The more I think of it, Meenal, this is how I see it. There's an institution called marriage and there's an emotion called love.
Yeah.
And ideally, anyone who's getting married should feel this emotion for their partner. That's there. But have you heard this new term that people seem to be using in India? They say, we're going to have a love come arranged marriage. Have you heard that?
Love come arranged marriage. So does that mean that they fall in love once they meet up? I have no idea.
Okay, so so when you hear this term, if you dig deep and you ask them a little bit more about this love come arranged marriage situation, what you'll hear is probably going to be this. Oh, we're family friends, we met up a couple of times, we kind of liked each other, but we never got the opportunity to tell each other about that. And finally, our families decided to bring us together, and now fate intervened and we are getting married. Or they'll say we're distant relatives, we've seen each other a couple of times at weddings and family functions, and we kind of liked each other. We never managed to tell each other that, but our families brought us together, blah, 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 blah. And they call it a love come arranged marriage. And I personally feel that this stems from some kind of shame in admitting that their families hooked them up and the families brought them together. And it also makes me think about why people think I'm lucky to have been able to marry someone of my choice. And I feel that a love marriage, a quote unquote love marriage, should not be a matter of privilege. It's just your right to be able to choose someone of your choice. And the fact that your parents hooked you up should not be a thing of shame.
You're very right in that aspect, because I believe expectations and realities are all subjective. You know, that if, for example, what you in India might feel as a privilege, us maybe in Europe won't feel that it's a privilege. We will just think it's pretty normal. So to some extent, I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. But what I do think is that somehow we need to start resetting our expectations and our benchmarks of what we believe should be ours and what we believe we have a right to.
So I just feel that once the youngsters who are getting married now or who got married in the past decade, if they stop using these labels, if they stop using these terms, if they stop telling people that they had a love marriage like me, if they stop feeling excited about the fact that they could marry someone of their choice, and they stop treating it as a privilege, then I guess the concept of being able to choose your own partner, it'll become normalized.
That's a very good point, because I've seen a lot of girls who are my age or maybe just a bit older, and some of my friends are actually on the verge of getting married. You know, their families are finding people for them, and they've presented boys to them and said, he might be a good match for you, and immediately they will say, but he's Punjabi, but he's Gujarati. So now even these terms are coming on our own tongues, and we are the ones who are saying that, so we don't even have the capacity to look beyond that, because it's been engraved in our brains so much that the first thing we see is their religion. The first thing we will see is their community.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with the fact that we've just been raised this way. Our families have dug this right into our brain from a very young age. And if we, at the age of 23, at the age of 25, who are supposed to be the more modern generation, the generation who is supposed to take everything a step forward, if we still can't look past it, if we still look at religion or the community, then what hope do we have in the future?
So I think that most of these problems and most of these mental blocks, they stem from the fact that marriage in India is a big deal. It's the biggest deal. People throw money at marriages and weddings, and it's just a huge deal for families. Everyone just gets to show off the perfect groom or the perfect bride they manage to secure for their daughters and their sons. And it all kind of stems from the fact that our country is really diverse. Yeah, so our country is not just diverse in terms of all the states and the languages and the different festivals and the colors. It's also, as far as I can personally tell, is religion. I think that is, at least in terms of marriage, religion is what comes up first. So when I was growing up, Meenal, I was the naive kid who didn't know much.
Yeah.
And in my house, this conversation never took place, probably because my dad, because he was in the military, he would travel all over India and he would interact with all these people. He never came back and brought up a religion-oriented conversation in our house, or a caste-oriented. I didn't know what community or caste I belonged to till I started filling in my college application forms. And in your college application forms, you should know, in India, if you fill out a college application form, they ask you questions like your caste, community, creed,
Why
skin
does that
color.
matter? Why does that matter?
Reservation.
So I'm assuming that the people in a lower caste will have much more of an advantage?
Chances. Yeah, they have an advantage.
So what if you lie? Can you lie in that? Do they check these things?
Yeah, people do lie.
Really?
Lie in the sense that if you fall under a particular cash bracket, I think the privileges are not available to you. So there's something called a creamy layer, non-creamy layer. So people lie about their annual income so that they can fall into the bracket and their kids can get into colleges and they get more of an advantage when they apply.
Man, people are so desperate.
Yeah.
Talk about
And the
desperation.
application form is just so confusing. You have all of these castes, these religions, and your father's annual salary, your grandmother's weight in kilograms. I don't know. all kinds of crap you have to fill out. And I really did not know which community I belong to. So I asked my parents before filling it, and they said OBC. And I ticked OBC in one of these application forms, right? And like a fool, I sent it in, and apparently I don't get the benefit of ticking that box because my dad is in the military. So we're in the, was it the creamy layer? Yeah, we're in the creamy layer. So they rejected my application because
what does OBC stand for?
Other backward class or caste? Caste. I think caste. Yeah. Other backward.
I would have put TBC, to be confirmed.
Yeah, so it's only when I started filling out these application forms that I became conscious of these things because this conversation never took place in my house. And as a child, I believed that a Hindu could marry a Hindu, a Muslim could marry a Muslim, and a Christian could marry a Christian. And I was also stupid enough to think that these were the only three religions.
Ankita, I think I was also in a confused position. I think I still am. I've been raised in a Hindu/Punjabi family. So in my family, we pray to most of the Hindu gods. I think most of them, at least. It's very hard to keep track of. But we speak Punjabi at home. We have this Punjabi vibe at home, Punjabi food, and we swear in Punjabi as well. But I've always been very confused because my parents have taken me to the temple, but at the same time, we've been going to gurdwaras as well. Now, if you look at the temple and if you look at the gurdwara, they're both two different entities because they have completely different histories. They started off at different times.
They're different religions. Isn't Sikhism a completely different religion?
It is.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is. It's a very different religion, and some beliefs are different as well. So as a child, I would go to the temple and I'd go to the gurdwara, and I think it's just as confusing as taking a child to a church and a mosque and saying, yeah, you're praying to God. Yep. Every time I questioned it, I was just told to be quiet, which I think is the answer to most of our questions. When we question anything in our religion or question anything in our culture, a lot of the times we are told to stay quiet and just get on with it.
So, or they'll say you'll never understand, or they'll say you'll understand when you grow up.
Yeah, and I think I'm quite grown up now. Ankita, am I grown up?
Well, you did make the Brangelina joke, so.
So I think I'm grown up enough now to ask or to question. I still don't get it. I don't understand why you'd go to the Gurdwara and go to temple. I think that when I used to go to the Gurdwara, I still felt the same sort of serenity and that peacefulness as I felt in a temple, to be honest. I mean, there was no difference. I enjoyed going to both. I enjoyed going to the Gurdwara and I enjoyed going to the temple. But I did it just as a child, and I did it mainly just because my parents made me to. But now if I look back, I don't know why I did it. And some Hindus I know personally are also Hindu/Punjabis. And some Hindu Punjabis I know will refuse to marry somebody who's Sikh.
Oh.
So you see, basically, this is an avalanche of shit that I have no idea how to clean up.
I think I get this because in Kerala, we have this community called the Nadar community. Mm-hmm. And if my understanding is right, I think they can choose to be either Christians or Hindu. And, in the same family, they can have some family members who chose to be Christians and some family members who chose to be Hindu. And it's perfectly all right. And a Christian Nadar... I think they can marry a Hindu Nadar and it's technically okay. Yeah, it's slightly confusing because I haven't read much literature on this and I haven't really been bothered enough to ask.
I think Ankita needs a bit of help over here, guys. So
do I look like I'm getting a panic attack?
Yeah,
Okay, so let's not get into that.
Yeah,
but the
let's
thing
not.
It's so diverse, and I think all diversity in India, when it comes to marriage, basically starts at the religion level. And stupid people like us think that there are Hindus, Christians, and Muslims, and that's it.
Yeah, idiots like you.
Idiots like me. But that's not how it is. There are all of these religions, and marrying outside of your religion is a big deal because some religions require you to convert into their religion if you want to marry someone, and it's just a big mess, which is why I feel that a lot of families and a lot of our parents have a big problem when it comes to an interreligion marriage, especially if you have a child you raised in a particular way, and then all of a sudden this child comes home and says, I like this guy or I like this girl, but in order to be with them I have to convert. And you obviously panic, I guess. Parents probably panic.
Yeah, I think that's the most uncomfortable thing parents would want to hear, is that to hear that the kid or the child to change a tradition or to change something that they've put in a lot of effort to drill inside them. But the only thing I really know is that Brahmin is at the top. And that's the only thing that's the only thing I can say confidently. I know a lot of other things, but I don't want to mention anything I'm not too sure of. But I know that in the southern parts of India, apart from Hinduism, we have Catholicism as well. And you have Latin Catholics, you have Roman Catholics, you have Christians. So
we have Protestant brethren, we have all.
So Ankita, you're from this part of India. Is it the same in that religion as well? Because I know what it's like on the Hindu side. Is it the same with the church?
So the thing is, we just discussed religion. What we have to probably touch upon is that within each religion comes many, many subsets.
Yeah.
Many, many subsets in terms of caste, community, all of those things.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, I was the stupid kid who didn't know anything, and I was naive, right? When I went to college and filling out my application form and filling in my father's annual salaries, that was an eye opener. And then I went into college, and that was when my eyes actually opened, and I began to get exposed to people from different parts of the state, the country, and I had this roommate. So the college I went to, it was a Christian institution. It was a Catholic institution. And I think it was compulsory for all the hostel students, the students who reside in the hostels, all the Christian students who reside in the hostels, to attend the morning mass in their chapel.
Okay.
So I had a roommate who told me that she didn't want to attend this mass because she was a Roman Catholic, and the mass at the college chapel was a Latin Catholic mass. And I was just like, aren't you all just Christians? What's the big deal? Right? And she explained to me that it's a big deal because she's a Roman Catholic. They are Latin Catholics. We're two different things. We have two different kinds of masses. And my mass is superior to their Latin Catholic mass.
Says who?
The Roman Catholic. My roommate.
So what if the Latin Catholic says mine is superior to the Roman Catholic?
I don't know. So this thing, when she said that my Roman Catholic Mass is superior to the Latin Catholic Mass, that first of all just went over my head. So to explain it more clearly to me, what she said was, I will never marry someone from the Latin Catholic community because I am a Roman Catholic. And that's when I was like, okay, there are Catholics and Protestants, and I kind of understand that, and I know about Henry VIII and what he did, and I read of my literature, people, but there's Roman Catholic and Latin Catholic, and I will not marry a Latin Catholic. When I heard that, I was like, wow, she's 17, and she already knows that, and I don't know what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that people have these subsets of religion. Now, even if you are Gujarati, from Gujarat, and you might find another Gujarati, but he might be from a different part of India, that still could be an issue. Even sometimes the region where you live in, and even the region where your family comes from, even that plays a role. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that just reminded me of this thing that happened. So one of my friends, oh wow, you're going to love the story.
I love all your stories, Ankita.
I've come with my, collection of crazy stories. Someday I'm going to write a book about this. Yeah. One of my friends, she and this guy, they were dating for 5 or 6 years. They were dating. I don't know how happy they were or anything. They were together for 5 or 6 years. They got everything right. So the checklist that most families provide their kids, religion, caste, community, blah, 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 they got it all right. They were from the same religion, same caste, same community, same everything. So after dating for 5 or 6 years, last year in 2015, towards the end of last year, they decided to tell their families.
Okay.
That they wanted to proceed with this thing and they wanted to get married. So the girl went to her family. She told them. Her parents were, I think her parents were okay with it.
Yeah.
Then the guy went to his family and told them. And the guy's mother said that this girl is from South Kerala and the girls in South Kerala are cunning witches. And obviously this girl has cast her spell on you, and she's, desperate to get a guy from North Kerala. My poor innocent baby, you have been tricked, blah, 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 blah. We cannot proceed with this because she's from South Kerala. We cannot have someone from South Kerala coming into our home. So we were talking about Roman Catholics and Latin Catholics, weren't we?
Wow, this is so much worse.
Yep.
That is so much more worse, Ankita. I've seen marriages happen in Europe, and it literally is, okay, it obviously isn't literally just one thing that you love each other. Obviously, there's a lot more that comes behind it. Marrying someone isn't a joke. It's your life that you are giving to somebody, and it's someone's life you're taking in your hands as well. But I've seen people get married here, and it really is as simple as the guy loving the girl and the girl loving the guy proposes. And if the family have any huge issues, they put it to the side. Because ultimately it is about them. It's about the couple.
Right.
If they are happy, if they're in love, if they're happy, they're going to go ahead, they're going to build their own small unit, build their own family and take it from there. I've never seen my friends in Europe, for example, worry so much about their spouse's family or their boyfriend's family or their girlfriend's family. If they don't approve of their spouse or the boyfriend or girlfriend, well, it's not a huge deal. They'll just tell their parents, look, actually, this is what I want for my future. This is what I want for my life. I've seen my friends get married, and the parents have told me that, Meenal, we're not so happy about it, but we will always do everything we can to support them.
Yeah, and here we have someone saying that this girl from South Kerala is a witch who has cast her spell on you. And you know what the worst part is? This guy, I think they had this thing going back and forth, and they would bring it up, and his family would find another reason to trash her and say that she's not good looking enough, or they'll bring in a few numbers like her age or her height or something, or her salary. They will bring something or the other. They will trash her and finally they started saying things like, we are more honorable. We are more honorable, and our family is better than her family. We are related to some royal family somewhere. We poop golden glitter, and then and then we take it and we put it on our skins, and we walk outside and we look like Edward from Twilight. But the girl, she doesn't even fart confetti.
Yeah.
So we can't accept her.
That's the biggest issue, that we have this checklist that we have to go through, right? We have to go through. The first thing that we always look at is the religion, mainly. They have to be some part of India. And then it goes down to everything else. Age, height, shoe size, maybe width of nostrils. I don't know.
Oh man, I'm glad shoe size is not a thing, because I have like children's size 2 shoes.
Really?
Yeah, I have to go to like the children's section to find shoes, especially in the UK. So if shoe size was a thing, I would never get married.
But even when you do get the checklist right, Ankita, I think a lot of us in India now are wise enough and we're clever enough that if we know that we're going to present somebody to our family, we will make sure that they are Hindu or they are from the same culture. We have that we have enough knowledge in that sense.
Yeah.
Even when we do go through the checklist, even when we believe that we've done everything right, sometimes there will be problems. They will say, yeah, but I don't like this part of the boy's family. I don't like that his grandfather did this 80 years ago. Or I don't like the fact that his sister isn't a doctor, or his sister is just working a normal job.
How is that going to affect your
so that's
married
the thing,
life?
Ankita, out of desperation, even though you get the checklist right, out of desperation, some families will start saying very hurtful things to you. And I haven't experienced it myself, but I've seen a lot of my friends around me in the UK. I've seen a lot of friends around me in India, and their parents have said, so why are you in such a rush to get married? Is it lust?
Oh.
They start taunting you in that way, and they will say, oh, are you in a rush to get married? Are you in a rush to have sex with someone? And
okay, so in that story that I just told you, the problem was that this girl did not have the right postcode.
Yeah.
Right? She was not from the right part of the country or the right part of the state.
Yeah.
But there was this other friend. Okay, the way I'm telling these stories, people are going to think I'm this grandmother who's like, children gather around me. No, I just want to clarify that I think I'm from that generation in India where this change is happening and people are bringing people home and introducing their parents to their boyfriends and girlfriends, and parents are like going crazy.
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends have these horror stories to share with me. Almost every other day I hear someone or the other telling me that, man, I'm so tired of that boy's family, or that, man, I can't tolerate my parents right now.
Yeah.
So this is when one of my friends who's been in a relationship for a while, she talks to her mom about this boy she's been going out with, and she says, I love him, I've been with him for so long, I want to marry him, we're really happy together. And they get everything right. Okay, Meenal, unfortunately for the mother, they get everything right. They get the caste, religion, blah, 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 and even the postcode right.
Yeah.
They're from the same city. And now that the mother doesn't have anything to hold on to, she finally says, oh, so that's what it is? So you're that desperate? How about I find you someone and I get you married to this someone, and then will you be satisfied? When I heard that, I was like, this is wrong on so many levels.
It's not just wrong, it's humiliating, it's insulting.
It's horrible, because the first implication is that all those things she said about loving this guy and being happy with him, all that has gone down the drain, and they're saying all you feel towards him is lust.
Yeah.
The second implication is that lust is bad. And the third implication is that the minute I find someone for you, I get you married and you get laid, you'll be fine. It's just horrible.
If anybody said that to me, Ankita, I would be deeply hurt. I would feel very insulted. I don't know if parents say, like, for example, this is what someone would say to their daughter. I don't know if they would say the same thing to a boy. I don't know if they would say the same thing to their son. Maybe there's something else they would say. But to say that to a young girl who really, most of the time, is just innocent. You know, you love someone and you bring them to your home, and then they turn it around like that and they say these horrible, horrible things, which can be so painful. And
more than painful, I just go, how dare you? How dare you say that to your 20-something daughter who's an adult, and you should be treating her like one? And this is, how dare you
Ankita,
insult
if someone
like
said that to me personally, I would lose all respect for them.
Yeah.
I would lose all respect, because it just shows that they don't know how to deal with the situation. And I don't know if it's because of their education. I don't know if it's because of the culture and traditions they've been raised in. Because if someone said this to someone maybe 30 years ago, 50 years ago, then maybe it would have been acceptable. Maybe people would have taken it. But I know that I wouldn't take it right now. I know that you wouldn't take it.
I feel that in the end, it all boils down to control, because they feel that they raised this person. They provided for his or her
this
education.
Is very selfish, Ankita. I think that if you have a family, if you build a family by yourself, you have to understand that your kids one day, you're producing kids who have their own brains inside them.
Yeah.
You are educating them. Why are you educating them? You're educating them so they can make their own decisions. You're educating them so they can live a bright future for themselves. Why are you trying to get into their brains and trying to control everything that they do?
You know what these people should have just done? Instead of bringing unfortunate, unsuspecting offspring into this world, they should have just gotten themselves a dog.
Yeah, I think Ankita loves dogs. Actually, there's a dog in my neighborhood, and I take daily photos just for Ankita. I'm sure that brightens up the day quite a lot.
Yeah.
Ankita, we got off track again, but you were talking about control. And yes, parents want to control their kids, and they want to control who they get married to. And they even start controlling things like, you can only marry someone of this specific age. You can only marry someone who has this specific height and this specific salary. They look at numbers like that. If it's 6-figure salary, if it's a 5-figure salary. And all these things are not in our control to some extent, Ankita. You can't love is such a complex emotion. You can't control who you love because of their salary. You can't control who you love because of their color. And some things are not in our control when our parents say, yeah, but his height isn't attractive enough. And I don't know what the best way to deal with it, Ankita. I'm sure when you introduce Shane to your family, you may have come across resistance like this.
Okay, so this is exactly what happened. I told my parents about it. I told my mom about it. And the first thing she said was, oh no, how am I going to tell the rest of the family about this? Because Shane is half Christian. You know, Shane's mom is a Christian and his dad is a Hindu. And my mom is like, we are a Hindu family. How am I ever going to be able to tell the rest of our Hindu family that you have a half Christian boyfriend? And I said, okay, Mom, listen to me. If you want to talk to me, if you want to have a reasonable conversation with me, why don't you come and talk to me when you're ready? You know, let's talk as adults. But up until then, I don't want to talk to you. So she actually thought about it for a few hours. And within a few hours, she actually said, let's have a reasonable adult conversation. So I told her that she was allowed to list flaws. She was allowed to list his flaws, but she was not allowed to say anything that he did not personally have control over. So she's not allowed to say that he's a half Christian because he did not have any control over which family he was born into, what religion they were following, etc.
Yeah.
So I asked her, do you have any problem with his career choice or his education or even his looks? He didn't have control over it, but do you have a problem with his looks?
Yeah.
Like, do you think he's ugly? And she was like, no, I don't have a problem with anything. And it was pretty easy.
Okay.
And when I told my dad about it, he probably because he was, in the military and he traveled around and he's interacted with a lot of people, he really did not care about any of those things. And the only question he ever asked me was, is he smart? And, is he a good person? Will you be happy? I mean, if your house burns down, will you two make a good enough team to start from scratch? These were the questions he asked me.
Which are very reasonable questions.
Yeah. And I was so shocked. I was like, oh, what is happening? Why are my parents being so nice?
Yeah.
And then one fine day, the next time when Shane came to India, I just informed my parents that he was coming to visit us. He was, coming to meet them, and that I trust them to be nice to him.
Mm-hmm.
I told them that I love you and I trust you and just be nice to him. And they actually cooked for him and they met him, and it went really well, and they loved him. It was okay. It was easy.
Yeah. But that's how we hope everything should be with any interaction. Obviously, if you're going to bring a drug dealer home, it's not going to go that way.
Nope.
But if you bring a nice big teddy bear like Shane, I mean, who wouldn't love him?
Yeah. Now, one thing you should know is that when I was young, when I was like in 6th grade and like 10 years old, 11 years old, I would actually hear my mom talking on the phone to, I don't know, relatives, friends.
Mm-hmm.
She would say things like, when it comes to Ankita's marriage, I'm never going to allow her to marry someone outside of our community.
Yeah.
I've heard her say this. But I think as I grew up, as she saw me developing my own personality, she actually started respecting me for who I am, and she did not really put up much of a fight. I mean, initial reaction of hers was this, but in the end, she was very reasonable and respectful, and I feel that I was important to her, which is why she did that.
Yeah, and you have to stand up to your parents at some point. I think that a lot of us think that the best way and the easiest way is not to antagonize these ideas and these thoughts that our parents present to us. And
it's not just when it comes to you introducing someone to your family that you need to stand up to them. It's not just about your fight for your right to choose for yourself that you need to stand up to them. I think you should stand up to them when you bring someone home and they may mistreat them. So, for example, we've heard so many stories, Meenal. We've been like wired when we hear these stories of boys going up to girls' families and begging the father for the girl's hand, and the father ill-treating him or insulting him or saying that you don't earn enough or you don't have a business, you don't have this kind of salary, and just ill-treating. And then there are these stories of how after he's been insulted, he leaves the house dejected, and then he makes something of himself and comes back and asks for the hand and everything's okay again. I think these stories need to be stopped. Like, people should...
No, I think you should stop watching Bollywood movies.
Why would you stop watching Bollywood movies?
But you're right, Ankita. I feel that you made a very good point, because if someone introduces their girlfriend or boyfriend to their family, or they introduce him as someone they would like to spend the rest of their life with, if the parents start insulting them right in front of your own eyes, it's a big red flag. Because this is just the beginning. We all know what mother-in-laws are like. And I'm not saying all mother-in-laws are going to be tough to deal with, but I'm saying that just generally, because you're not marrying that person, you're marrying into a family, you have to understand that there's going to be a lot of resistance. Not just when you ask for the hand, not just before the marriage, but after the marriage. There's going to be...
So what I feel is that it all basically is about how one human being treats another human being. It doesn't matter who this other human being is.
That's very
and how
true.
old he or she is.
Yeah.
So I feel that you should respect people not for their age, not for who they are in relation to you, but for their actions. So for example, if there's like a 70-year-old child molester who also happens to be, unfortunately, your grandfather, how can you respect him just because he's 70 years old? Or just because he's your grandfather?
And a lot of people will say, I have to stay quiet because he's my granddad, or she's my mom. You stay quiet. Good luck with the rest of your life, mate. I mean, I don't know how easy it's going to be to do that.
So if you feel that you just met your boyfriend's family or you just met your girlfriend's family and they mistreated you and they they insulted you, and they were not kind to you for no fault of your own. They make up excuses that you're ugly, or that you're not tall enough, or you're not thin enough, and they treat you in a bad way because of these reasons, then I think that trend where you take that insult, you keep quiet, then you work hard, improve yourself, that trend has to end, and you need to stand up for yourself, show yourself some respect and love, stand up to these people and tell them that they're not allowed to do that.
And I think sometimes we have to just admit and just accept that no matter what you do, sometimes people just won't be happy. And you have to understand that as well, that you can bring the perfect human being home and it will still be an issue. And I've seen a lot of Indian women, Pakistani women, and they're in their 50s, 60s now, and they're still suffering.
Yeah.
They're saying, I have to just listen to my mother-in-law. I have to just listen to the taunts from my family.
Yeah, if you shout out for women who have horror stories from their mothers-in-law and from their in-laws, I'm sure that most women in India will raise their hands and say, yep, I have a story to share.
I mean, they have been struggling for 20 years, 30 years, however long they've been married.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes it will happen. You can do all you can, but sometimes you can't avoid it. But I think that if you just take it, they're just going to keep going and going and going. So
yeah, don't follow the examples of the past where people say things like, I can't do anything because at the end of the day, she's my husband's mother, or he's my wife's father. I have to take this. No, you don't have to take this. And if your spouse or your partner cannot understand that, if your spouse or your partner says, how dare you speak to my mother like that, or how dare you not listen to my mother, I think that's a big red flag, because they should be able to see the crap that is being thrown at you.
Once again, it all comes down to honesty, right, Ankita? You have to be honest with whoever you're dealing with and just tell them that, look, I don't like this. The more you bottle it in, the more you're going to suffer and the more you're going to struggle.
Yeah. So and all the honor bullshit that these people come up with and say that we are so much better than you, our family is better than yours, all that, you don't have to, in Hindi you say tane marna.
Yeah.
You don't have to just be silent and take that crap, because trust me, every single family in India is going to call themselves an illustrious family or an honorable family, and they all have this story to share about how either it could be a story of rags to riches, like my dad may have been poor, or my dad may have been a drunkard, but I own 5 elephants now, or that I may be poor now, but my father used to own 5 elephants.
Everyone has their honor. Everyone thinks that they are the most important family around.
Yeah. And this honor thing, Meenal, honestly, I get so irritated when I hear this. You know what I want to do? I want to slap all these people. But I can't do that because I'll have to jump to slap them. Most of the people I want to slap are way taller than me. If I could have things my way, I would just be 5 feet 4 inches tall, and I'd wear 3-inch heels, walk on the streets.
Just to slap people, no other reason.
Just to slap, just giving away free slaps. Slapping sense into them. I hear this honor story and everyone says we are more honorable than it's all about honor, our family honor. Trust me, every single family, this is a global thing.
Yeah.
Every single family is dysfunctional in some way or the other. Every single family has skeletons in the closet. Yeah. There's no such thing as one perfect family.
Yeah, there's so many things hidden under a veneer of this facade of we are the best, we are Brahmin, and I think it's a load of crap if you ask me honestly.
I've heard, I recently read somewhere that everyone in the world has a story to share of how their parents were always fighting when they were growing up, or how their parents got divorced when they were young and that scarred them emotionally, or that my mother favored my brother or sister more than me, and all of that. But the sad truth is that this is a universal global thing, and it happens in every single family, so it's not just your unique story. So the point is that you have to rise above all of that and actually try to make a good life for yourself, and stop saying things like, oh, I'm from such an honorable family. There's no such thing as an honorable family.
Stop saying things like, I have to take it, because really you don't.
Yeah.
The reason why we did this podcast is because we want to tell our listeners that, forget these labels. Just for a minute, forget these labels. Just respect yourself, respect the future you want, really just respect yourself, love yourself, and fight for anything that you believe will affect your future. Don't take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
It's okay to stand up. If someone antagonizes you, that's fine. And I think that you have to understand that people will antagonize you. This is not supposed to be easy, especially if you come from a very traditional household. If you go in thinking that, oh, this is going to be really easy, then it's going to be an issue. But if you go in thinking, okay, this is going to be quite tough to deal with, but I'm putting my foot down until we've come to a decision where I have a happy future.
Yeah. And if any of you are going to be parents soon and you think, or you want to be parents and you think that you're in the situation where you can't let go of your belief systems and you can't possibly not control your child, then please get a dog. Please don't bring that unfortunate child into this world.
I do have some sympathy for parents because I understand that it's very difficult to change your beliefs and change your ideas. Even as kids, imagine how stubborn kids can be. Remember, we were stubborn at one point as well.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to tell a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old that you can actually think in this specific way. You can't rewire their brain. You just can't do that to some people.
No, but then what I'm saying is, if you're going to be a parent, or you want to be a parent in the future, and you think that you're going to want to control every aspect of your child's life, then don't do that. Don't bring the child into this world. Just bring a dog so that, you can say sit and stay and eat and halt and I don't know what else you say to dogs, and they will listen to you. But you can also love and nurture them, So now that we discussed all of these things that we basically don't have any control over, that people seem to be fixating on, I'm actually curious now, Meenal, because you were raised in Europe. Do you really relate to all of these stories? Do you think that I'm talking about crazy people, or do you think that this is perfectly normal?
This is perfectly normal for me, Ankita. I mentioned in the pilot episode, I was raised in a more traditional household. Apart from that, I have witnessed a lot of things happening around me because I was raised in quite a big Hindu community. I have a lot of friends who are Hindu, Pakistani, and I just really want to emphasize that all these things that we have discussed and all these things that we've mentioned doesn't only happen in India, Pakistan, or rural India and rural Pakistan. I've seen some horror stories in Europe myself, and so I know about this one specific friend of mine, Ankita. She's very close to me, and she introduced a boy to her family and to her parents, and it was more of a, by the way, I'm seeing this guy, and it was a very casual introduction, nothing more than that.
Was she Indian?
Yeah, she's Indian, Ankita, and
raised in Europe.
Raised in Europe.
Okay.
And her brother seemed to have a big issue with it, and her brother was very controlling over her, and her brother started to hack her social media accounts. He started to hack Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, Instagram. I don't know what he hacked.
Yeah. What boundaries?
And her brother, who's hitting almost 30 now, did all these things. And it wasn't that he accessed all this without any permission. It was that he printed everything out and he presented it to her parents. So on paper, they see everything, all the conversations that she's had with this boy. And you can imagine, Ankita, if a young girl is in a relationship, they will send messages, even if they're things like, I miss you, or I can't wait to see you again, anything like that. This is going to trigger off parents
Those are the most private, intimate conversations. Why would you show that to your parents of all people?
If you're showing this to parents who are Indian or Pakistani or Desi, who are quite traditional, they will not accept this on any condition. They will be very overprotective over their daughter. The brother was very overprotective. Now, I don't understand why the brother was so overprotective, considering...
I wouldn't call that overprotective. I would call that like douchebag level 100 or something.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like he had nothing better to do. He had no boundaries, and
it doesn't stop there.
Okay, there's more.
Yeah, Ankita, he raised his hand on his younger sister. Now I'm telling you the story, and I'm getting goosebumps because it's so difficult for me to perceive this happening in Europe, especially in Europe.
So I just want to get a few things straight. Okay, this is me trying to process this information that you've given me. So this is an Indian family living in Europe. Both the kids were educated in Europe.
Yeah.
This boy is, if he's hitting 30, he's from our generation, basically.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He's from our generation, and he's probably well educated. He was educated there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the unfortunate thing is that for an Indian family, back in India, this boy, is he married?
He's not married.
Oh, wow. Okay. So for an Indian family back in India, this boy would be like the most eligible bachelor.
So yeah, he is a very eligible bachelor in India. A lot of families would love to have him as their son-in-law because of his credentials.
All I can think of is, if he could do that to his sister, then how can any girl ever marry him or be with him. And dear girls who are listening to this, please be careful. Just because a boy was raised abroad, or just because he lives abroad and he has this fancy job and he was educated abroad, doesn't mean that you're gonna have a good life with him, because these kind of assholes exist. I cannot help but call this guy like the biggest asshole in the world for doing something like this. Not only did he access all of that information, he printed it out, showed it to the parents, and then physically abused his sister.
Yep.
And
this is in Europe, so you know that a lot of Indian families in Europe don't have immediate family around them. So this poor girl was just by herself, and she had to deal with it by herself. And I don't know what happened from there, to be honest. But all I know is that it was a very painful period for her. It was possibly an eye-opener for her that this is actually what her brother is like, and this is what her family are like.
Oh, this is such an eye-opener for me, because whenever I hear these kind of stories, some part of my brain just associates it to rural India or like some other part of the country where this is normal. And I don't think it gets more modern than that, what you just described to me, this boy who was raised abroad,
Studied abroad,
works abroad. I don't think it gets more modern than that, and this is what he did. And
problem is that when this happened, the parents thought it was okay to behave in this way. And I understand why the parents would think that, they were raised in India and they had this specific upbringing. So I'm not saying it's acceptable, but I'm saying I understand why they thought it was okay.
No, so where is that lesson you once taught your son about respect? And respect is something you show even towards your younger sister.
That all goes out the window when it comes to controlling someone in your family. All that doesn't mean anything. As long as your daughter, and if your son and your daughter don't produce the results that you want, in some families, these morals and these values that you teach them usually goes out the window.
If I was like 5 feet 4 inches tall, I would go slap some sense into it. I hope people know that I'm joking.
Yeah. She's not an aggressive person at all.
When I write stuff like wanting to slap someone like Shane, maybe, because he has a very slappable face, people actually sometimes send me messages saying, "Are you okay? Are you unhappy?" Wow. Yeah, because when you're writing, they can't really see that you're laughing while you're typing it out.
Yeah.
At least now they can hear me laugh. So but then this was such a shock. I was expecting, honestly, when I asked you this question, how is it like in Europe, Meenal? I was expecting you to say something like, oh, it's so different. It's not like this. People don't bother about all of these community caste thingies. And
not at all.
This was just...
I've seen it all. I've heard it all. And so that everything we've spoken about today, everything you've spoken about today, I understand. And it's because I understand is the reason why I wanted to do this podcast. And I thought it was very important to raise these issues. And a lot of things that we've said today must have resonated with our listeners. Whether you're Desi or not Desi, I think if you're not Desi, it's a big insight into what we have to go through. And just remember that we are just one culture in this big, big world. I don't know what it's like in other cultures. If you have any stories, do let us know and tell us what it's like living in a different part of the world. We'd love to know what it's all about. Yeah, so do send us your stories to mail@desioutsiders.com, because we hope that all of the stories that we shared today are personal experiences of people we personally know. We hope that you could relate to them and that resonated at some level or the other. So if you have any stories and if you feel that those stories need to be told and shared with the rest of the world, do send them to us at mail@desioutsiders.com. Do follow us on social media at The Desi Outsiders. Please do press the like button on our Facebook page. Follow us on Instagram. And we don't know much about Twitter, but we're getting there. I think Instagram was going to be very interesting. Ankita and I have discussed some fun projects we can do on Instagram. So do watch this space. And we are working on bringing some interesting content to our YouTube channel as well. If you're interested in bloopers, do subscribe to our channel. We are working on it. We will try our level best to bring some bloopers to you guys. And because we've just started out, we'd love to hear your feedback. And we'd love to hear what you think about our podcast and how we can improve. Because ultimately, this is all for you. This is all for you guys out there. So thank you for tuning in into episode 1 of our podcast. And do subscribe. On iTunes, you will have an option to leave us reviews. Please do leave us a 5-star review if you like this podcast, because that would help to get us into the new and noteworthy section on iTunes. So do leave us a review. Do subscribe to us. And do show us your love. Until next week, I'm Meenal. And I'm Ankita. And we are the Desi Outsiders.